couldn't really handle the upholstery, he got his son-in-law to do it. And I'm sure he paid him minimal amount, because he and, what was his name? Well, the daughter's name was Dorothy. Well, maybe it'll come to me. But he was sort of a misfit in some ways. I remember he broke his toe getting out of bed one time. And another time he was in the reserve, and they had gone to Fort Drum or something for a week, and he jumped out of the back of a truck and he broke his ankle. I mean, he was one of these guys who just never things went right for him.
Right.
Well, he got him to do the upholstery for him, and I'm sure he wasn't giving him very much. And my father used to go up on Saturday nights and visit. And my mother, I don't think my mother went. I remember going with my father. And my uncle, George, would be sitting in one of these sort of like a throne chair with a felt back and a felt seat, and these arms that came up that were all carved, ornate, you know. And he would call me over, and he would have 2 brand new pennies. And he would put them out and hold them like that, and I'd put my hand out. But he wouldn't let them go until I looked up at him. When I looked up at him, he would smile at me, and he'd drop the 2 pennies in my hand. Now, I thought that was, great, 2 pennies. But I looked back on it, and I thought, it was just an indication of how he controlled the world around him, and how he controlled his wife, Floss. Floss was just one of these amiable people who liked to cook. She'd cook donuts every weekend, and my father and I would sometimes go up and get a donut, because he liked the donuts. My mother made donuts too, but she made the cake type. My Aunt Floss made the raised donut type. So it was good for a change. But then there was my an older sister, Ida, and Ida had married Charlie, and Charlie was another guy who really couldn't do much physically, and so Ida did everything. They owned a house, a 2-family house, and my Uncle Ern and his wife Mary lived in the top floor, and Ida and Charlie lived in the bottom floor. And they had apparently couldn't have children, and so they adopted a child, but the child ended up being blind. But Ida felt this was their duty to raise this child.
When they adopted the child, they didn't know they were blind?
No, they didn't know until after. They
A
adopted her as a baby. And so anyway, she was very severely handicapped. I don't know whether she could see, she might have been able to see shapes, but she couldn't even eat. She had to eat with her fingers.
Did she have other problems besides that?
Well, she wasn't great. She wasn't really bright, but whether that was a result of her not
being trained or whatever.
She went to, there was a place in Lancaster that dealt with the blind. Perkins, yeah. And she went there for a few years to be trained to take care of herself, I guess.
Reed Burrell.
I don't know how much she ever did that. Ida just did everything for her.
Right.
She enabled her, so she didn't have to do anything.
Right.
And Shirley never ate. Well, she might have a fork in her hand, but she was using her.
Did we know Shirley?
You probably did.
I think we did.
You probably did.
I remember her. Did
How
she
old
have
was
dark
she?
brown hair and
Yeah.
glasses?
Yes, yes.
And
And eyes
I
that
remember
that
her.
were always
Yes,
big,
yes.
and because she wasn't seeing, but they were always.
Yes, I don't
Right.
know where we would have seen her though. Maybe a picnic at Nana's.
Well, you might have been
Like-
there. You might have been there in
I
Hannah's
remember that.
Because Ida and Shirley, well, Charlie
I
died.
don't remember. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. It might have been
Unless-
after. It might have been after she died.
Maybe.
There was a woman who I think Shirley was in an institution, but there was a woman who used to take her out weekends, and she might have brought her to visit because Shirley would
Yep.
want to see
Yeah.
the family. Yeah.
I remember too a couple times doing that picnic at Barrett's Park,
With our,
Warminster.
that was mostly the McGrath, my mother's
Yeah.
family.
I don't really know who was there besides our immediate cousins, like Andy or
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, I
or
feel like that's
Patty.
the only ones that we kind of stuck to because I didn't
Right.
really know anybody else.
Right.
Yeah. The
And
others
I know
were
there
the
was a lot
Boston.
of other people there, but it wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you remember Emery coming with the candy?
Did he throw candy up in the air?
Yes. Yeah. He
I
had
remember
this.
that.
He had this.
Pennies, actually, like change. We'd be at Aunt Barbara's.
Oh, I remember that.
Some guy would come and throw candy up in the
I
air.
thought that was Susan's husband from California. Sue's husband.
No.
Phil?
No. Did you say Phil?
Yeah.
Oh, was his name Phil?
Well, the first
First
one was
husband.
Jeff Tamulonis.
Remember
Yeah,
Cookie,
Emery-
Cookie and Pookie and
That's Sue.
okay.
Yeah. Emery was. He wasn't. I don't think he was a relative, but he was a close friend of the McGrath family. I think he grew up with my mother and her family in the area or something. And he lived in New Hampshire, and he used to come down. His wife was Rose, and he would open the trunk. He had this little coupe, 2 seats in the front, and this big coupe, this big trunk. And he'd open the trunk and he'd take out candy and throw. And maybe he threw out pennies too or money. I don't know. But he was a good. He was a happy person.